is he doing? Word fearless on my brain.
I started thinking about, oh God, our state of the world, and I think, you know, because of how quickly news travels nowadays, everything seems to be so apocalyptic all the time. But then I started to unravel it and started thinking about how humanity must be thinking the same thing that we are thinking right now through the ages. If you think about humankind was first discovered on this planet, sometimes they say sometimes between 1 or 2 million years ago. And Homo sapiens were discovered 100,000 years ago. That's a lot of life on this planet, although in the big scheme of how large or how long the planet has been in existence, 4.5 billion years, the human experience is less than the slice of a fingernail. So that's how important humanity is, if you put it in context. But then I started thinking about, like, what would it have been like living during the Crusades or the French Revolution? What would it have been like? I don't know why I thought of the Salem witch trials, because that was a very small sliver. But I was like, oh God, what if I would have been a witch? I would have been like catastrophic to be thinking about it in those terms. And then I started thinking about the Roman Empire and how long that existed and living under that rule. I got to go to Rome a couple years ago and taught, and I went to the Colosseum, and, like, you know, throughout the summer solstice sometimes there were people coming in and out of the Colosseum and were, like, you know, offerings for you know, the gladiators. And so you start to think in terms of context. You think about the civil rights movement and the people that suffered. You think about the Civil War. You think about India getting their independence in the 40s from British rule. And you realize, like, it's a part of being alive, this sort of calamitous political world we live in. And then I started thinking about, well, isn't this great then that we as artists have a place where even if it's just 3 or 4 hours a week, that we can come together and we can put ideologies aside. You can put politics aside. You can put your religious faith aside or your own views about certain hot topics aside and exist with other human beings basically at our core. Which is really, I think, what gets us into trouble because we forget about our core, which is we're all fragile, we're all scared. We're all vulnerable, we're all wanting to be heard and seen, we all want to make a difference, we all want to contribute. Now those are things that get lost in politics. Those are the things that get lost in Washington or when people pass rules that make us feel marginalized or discredited. But the space itself of being an artist, to create with other people where you in your scene can allow yourself to let go of ego and be, I am a fragile human being, not having to have the answers right now, just trying to explore more deeply what it is for me to be human. That's really why we're here. And I think it's so important to stay connected to that, you guys, out in the world, because in the world, it's doing everything it can to compartmentalize, to separate, to create divisions. And then we lose our sort of own moral compass as artists, I think. So, can we think about that? And that's the real reason to be creating. It's the real reason to have a sacred space. That's what I think the sacred space of acting was always about, is to mirror back to other people the experience of what it means to be human. White, black, Asian, gay, straight, Republican, Democratic, all these labels and terms that we define ourselves by. But at the end of the day, when we leave, we are not these things. We hoist on ourselves and on others to separate. So, I don't know, that was like a church sermon, and I'm sorry, but that is really important to me and something that keeps me motivated and moving forward in these times that I find to be very challenging.